Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Mountaineer Postgame Show. I'm Schuyler Callihan. That is Eugene Napoleon. The West Virginia Mountaineers dropping to 2-4 on the season, 0-3 in Big 12 play with a 38-24 loss to number 23 BYU. A look here at the numbers for this game. Khalil Wilkins gets his first start for the Mountaineers at quarterback. He goes 7 of 15 for 81 yards. 2 picks. We'll talk about those two in a second. He also ran the ball for a team-high 23 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. He was the workhorse in this one. You could see it as a gutsy performance from him. And then for BYU's quarterback, the true freshman Bear Bachmeier, as good as advertised, 18 for 25 for 351, a touchdown, and did throw his first interception of the season. That was grabbed by Chase Wilson. Gene, it was a weird game in the beginning because it felt like BYU was the benefit of just some explosive plays. You had the Khalil Wilkins interception that returned it all the way inside the 5, then they score right away. And then you had the 85-yard play at one point that set them up shop again. And it just felt like it wasn't a game that was completely out of hand yet, but it felt like it was starting to get that way. But West Virginia found a way to make this thing interesting in the fourth quarter. A couple of times, and you like to at least see the fight that they put on display there at the end of the game.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm very impressed with the fight, the grit, to go on the road, to go into a hostile environment like BYU, well-coached football team. I take my hat off to BYU, but I also take my hat off to a well-fought fourth quarter from the Mountaineers. I mean, they didn't give up. They didn't tuck their tails. They played through, and that's, to be honest with you, they played through everything, and that is the trademark of a Rich Rodriguez coach team. They're going to be tough. They're going to play to the last second on the clock. I appreciate that. So the score, like you said, it could have been something different.
Oh, boy, could it have been. It could have been 56-10 or something like that if the offense couldn't find any rhythm. But yeah.
But 38-24, listen, I'm not into moral victories, but I'll tell you what, I'll take 38-24 versus 50-10. Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm good with the fight for sure.
And we're not in the contention era just yet here in Morgantown, obviously, and I think we kind of all knew that even before the season, but especially before tonight. And you and I talked about it in the preview show. Like, you just want to see a competitive brand of football. When you go on the road, you play a top 25 team. This is a team that's going to be vying for a spot in the Big 12 championship game. They could make the college football playoff. They are that good of a team. And the fact that you, on a short week, off a blowout loss, off of 2 blowout losses nonetheless, go to their place on the road on a short week with your redshirt freshman quarterback making his first ever start. It could have got out of hand from the get-go, and it kind of, like I said, it felt like that way, but it never really did. They were able to kind of hang in there and sink their teeth in and continue to play. Let's go ahead and talk about Khalil Wilkins. Obviously, he was the straw that stirred the drink for the Mountaineers in just about every asset of the offense because – obviously didn't throw the ball a ton, but did have a couple of impressive throws. The first interception probably just should have bit the bullet on it. Probably got baited into that one. The second one obviously was right into Cam Vaughn's hands. It probably would have been inside the 5 or so yard line of BYU. Would have set the Mountaineers up shop, but just a bad play there on Vaughn's part. But I thought overall you saw some things in the pass game from Khalil that gives you some optimism moving forward. You got to think, again, we're talking about this situation. Short week, tough opponent on the road. You don't want to give this complex game plan to him and just really throw him out of sorts. You kind of got to have the training wheels on him for a couple of weeks. You got the bye week coming up. Maybe when you get back out there against UCF, you can start to do a little bit more. And the further you get into this season with him as your guy, as it appears he may be that guy, you're going to be able to uncover more of your offense.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I think he played very well, considering what the circumstances as they were. He played very well. He did what he needed to do. At the end of the day, I'm impressed with him, and I'm also impressed with Scotty Fox.
Yeah. I think how about that? He said, hey, don't forget about me now.
Listen, now we have 2 good young quarterbacks that they can be groomed in this particular offense, And moving forward, you now know you have two good ones in that room. So for me, I think the future looks bright with those two quarterbacks. Obviously, you're still going to have to recruit and do what you need to do. But with those two, I think you have something to build on. I'm impressed with both of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and now you just got to find some pieces around them. The offensive line's got to get better, and that's one of the things that again stood out to me. It's not a shocker. I kind of had a feeling that was going to be the case. BYU's front is very, very good, both sides of the ball, but it felt like defensively, West Virginia just wasn't getting enough knockback, and it wasn't so much in the run game. It showed up there in spurts, but the last 2 weeks they just got bullied around in the run game. This week, I felt like they just weren't getting enough pressure on Bachmeier. They weren't really forcing him into a ton of bad decisions or rushing him into a lot of bad decisions. And I felt like that was kind of why he was able to carve them up for 300 some yards in this game. But
Oof.
the offensive line, again, it's just that's the reason why Khalil Wilkins had 23 carries in this game because they had to almost have another option, and that being throwing the football on the play. Because if they're just committed to turning around and handing it off to Dior Hubbard or Ty Edwards,
Yeah.
you're it's a low percentage play at this point. So they've got to find the right five up there, and it showed on that fourth and goal stand at the end of the game. You need
Yeah.
3 inches, man. Like 3 freaking inches to get into the end zone. It's not going to change the outcome of the game, but at least makes it a little bit better. You finish off another productive drive, and you just couldn't do it. It was another shortcoming for this offensive line.
Well, so let me tell you something. When you need an inch, 2, 3 inches, and you can't get it, that's demoralizing. Let me be
It
clear.
really
So
is.
that it is what it is. Like you have to get that because if anything, it's self confidence in the run game. It boosts you up a little bit. It makes you feel like if it's 4th and 1, I can go for 4th and 1 and pick it up. If you can't get an inch, what does that say? You understand what I'm saying? So that speaks larger. There's more than just that's problematic about your offense when you can't get a freaking inch. So yeah, that's problematic. And you're right. We have to shore that up. We have to get better offensive line play moving forward in this season because if not, this will be an issue for the rest of the remaining of the game. So you can't do this. We have to get better up front. Point blank, period.
Yeah, and I know there's going to be a lot of criticism about that in terms of going in the gun versus being under center. And look, I get it to a certain extent, but if it doesn't matter if you're in the gun or under center, if you're getting stonewalled and you're getting pushed back on your heels as an offensive line, it doesn't matter where he's at. He's probably going to end up further back in the backfield if he's under center and that happens.
Push is push. You need
Exactly.
push. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you're in. You can be 20 yards back or you can be 2 yards. It doesn't matter. Push is push. You got to get push up front. You cannot let somebody, like you said, put your guard, your tackle, your center in the lap of the quarterback.
Yeah. And defensively, this has kind of become a little bit concerning here because obviously in the first 3 weeks of the season, it felt like that was going to be the strength of this team. And you would just kind of hope that the offense would eventually come around and you'd have somewhat of a balanced team in terms of being able to win some football games. But these last 3 games has not been good for the defense. We talked about the rush issues in the last 2 games with the 242 allowed on the ground to Kansas, 242 to Utah. Today it really wasn't as much the run game, but it was the passing game. This secondary, which has been good all season long for the most part, just had a really bad game. Michael Coates, you're got to watch on the Napoleon's Dynamite. Your pick to watch had arguably his worst game. I don't even think it was arguably his worst game. It was his worst game. Gave up that big 85-yard pass where it looked like he just flipped his hips the wrong way, got an inside release, and he was wide open. And I think that was the first play of that drive right after West Virginia just pinned BYU deep inside their own 10 or inside their own 20, excuse me. And there you go. And 2 plays later, they're in the end zone. So before this game, Gene, I found this stat. Well, actually, we talked about it in the preview. Um, Before this game, Bear Bachmeier had just 4 completed passes of 20 or more yards. 4 in 4 games. He finished today with 6. He had
Wow.
4 at halftime. So he matched his season total of 4 in the first half of this game. He had completions of 47, 54, 85, 35, 20, and 21. You have games like that, you ain't gonna win.
No. And listen, uh, that's kind of like a Joe Montana stat.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. And it's interesting because watching it, you're not really paying attention until you break the game down like we're doing now, and you analyze it and you start looking at, wow, 6. That's a big number. And for them, they're licking their chops. I'm sure their offensive coordinator, they're happy with that, because if you do that moving forward, you're going to win a lot of football games.
Oh yeah.
A lot of football games. For us, conversely, oh man, that's alarming. We have to fix that. Once again, you're talking about the maturation of the offense to catch up with the defense. Now it looks like the offense got somewhat on track tonight, somewhat, and now we're sliding on the defensive side of the ball. So you can't have it, because, again, moving forward, the competition and what you need to do to get in any type of contention, I don't care if you win 3, 4 more football games, but it has to look better than what it looked tonight. And you can't slide that far back. You can't take a defensive back seat now moving forward. Hopefully, this bye week, you get healthy and you can fix some things and you look much better moving forward. But that's an alarming stat, Scott.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's not like you're giving up. I mean, even if you gave up 6 20-yard plays, I mean, that's still way too many. But the fact that 4 of those are 35 or more yards, three
Yeah.
of those are essentially 50 yards or more. I mean, that's half the field. I mean, that's just gifting them great field position and great opportunities to score. So yeah, we talked about the training wheels coming off for Khalil Wilkins at some point this season, hopefully. Well, tonight was that night for Bear Bachmeyer. If you go back and watch what they did in the first 4 games, he was very efficient. They really didn't push the envelope all that much. Like I said, just 4 completions of 20-plus yards coming into tonight. So they really were being very smart with how they were, handling the offense with him operating it. Tonight they said, you know what, we're taking shots, and a lot of those came on first down.
Here's the key. What does that say, right? Again, a well coached football team, we know this, right? But what does that say about what you think of what you can get done in the pass game with the first play you go deep? The
Yeah.
very first play
I
of
mean, they did
BYU.
it. They did it what 3 or 4 times as drive openers.
Right. So what does that say? That means, you know what that means? There's something in film study that showed them that they can get that off because they did it 3, 4 times. So that might be something that we need to pay attention to as a staff. That may be something. What are we doing if we are tipping our hat a little bit? Because you don't do that with that type of consistency unless you see something that's there. So we may want to take a look at that during the bye week and again clean that stuff up.
Yeah, and before we get out of here, it is the bye week coming up, so we'll get back to our normal schedule the following week. We will have between the ears tomorrow. I should say here in a few hours,
Yeah.
and then we'll be back on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we won't be back again until Sunday. But before we get out of here, Gene, I want to get your thoughts on the second half of the season. Now we've officially reached the midway point. What
Yep.
are you hoping to see out of this group down the stretch? What has to happen? What answers does this coaching staff have to find?
Listen, I would love to see West Virginia. Now this is hyperbolic, right? Win out. Let's go win out, right? Okay. Yeah. I would love to see
Win out
that.
until
But
you can't win out, and then you just keep doing that.
right. But I would want to see more of the same of what I saw in the second half tonight, to be honest with you, because that fight, that don't give up mentality, I think you're going to need that. I would love to see us clean some things up on defense. Obviously, we have to do that. I would love to see us clean some things up on offense, better offensive line play, more push in the run game. I think we need to get in that 4.5 to 5 yards of carry for our backs, take a lot of pressure off the quarterbacks. If we can do that, you know what? Can we muster up 4 wins?
Mm.
Can we muster up 4 wins? Now, I know that's asking a lot based on what we've seen thus far, right? The last 4 games. Let's say 3 wins. How about that? Let's say 3 wins. Because that means you would have turned the corner, you would have fixed some mistakes, obviously, and then anything can happen. a better, more consistent product on the field for these next few weeks. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, complimentary football, which I thought at times we saw tonight,
Yeah,
but there were still some instances where it didn't show up. But yeah, I think complimentary football, just finding more of an identity on offense, which I think you might be able to find now that you have what we believe to
sure.
be your quarterback in Khalil Wilkins, and getting some of those guys healthy is going to be a big part of it. And finding some dudes along that offensive line to have multiple years of eligibility. Tykees Crawford done after this year. Kimo Makanele done after this year. Walter Youngbear done after this year. So you need to find at least one more piece up front. You would assume Nick Cray, the left tackle, Landon Livingston, the center, they're going to be guys that go into next season as starters. And even if they haven't played all that great, they've got that seniority in the offense now. That'd be their second year in the system. So can you find one more? Can you just find one more guy along that offensive line that you feel good about going into next year? Could you find two and feel really good? We'll see. But a lot of questions to be hopefully answered here in the last 6 games. We'll talk about it more next week. That'll do it for us here tonight on the post-game show. For Eugene Napoleon, I'm Schuyler Callihan. Again, make sure you click that like and subscribe button here on our channel at West Virginia on SI. And one final reminder, Between the Ears will not air on Sunday this week. We'll have an episode literally here in a handful of hours. I'm either going to stay up and get some caffeine in me and pound it out, or might take a quick nap and then get back at it. So we'll get that up later this morning on Saturday, and then we'll be back on Tuesday and Wednesday and maybe have Gene on for one of those to do some midterm report cards or something like that. So we'll get to it here in a few hours, and thank you guys for tuning in. Take care.